It is February 18th, 1996. Björk lands at Bangkok's Don Mueang Airport. She's been touring for about 5 months straight, and she is, as a result, exhausted. Every artist dreams of success, to be recognized by your peers, to be loved by your fans, to know that what you have created has made an impact. Following her 1993 debut release, aptly titled Debut, this was exactly what Björk found. But there's a tipping point with success, and more specifically, fame, where all of a sudden, it's not all it's cracked up to be. You find yourself surrounded not by music journalists, but by paparazzi, tabloid reporters, who are trying, desperately, to extract from you whatever they can, whether it be photographs or salacious statements. A select few thrive in this environment. They know how to play the game. Björk does not. Björk and her entourage move through the airport, into the baggage hall. Also tagging along is her son, Sindri. Several days before, the venue where Björk was originally scheduled to play burnt down, and a new venue was quickly arranged. The promoter of the concert was eager to convey that the concert was not cancelled, but relocated. They asked Björk's team if they could conduct a video interview at the airport. Björk and her team said no. But as they enter the main hall of the airport, they suddenly find themselves surrounded by 6 or 7 television crews. Björk puts her head down and plows ahead before a reporter, Julie Kaufman, steps forward and brightly says,
"Welcome to Bangkok."
Somehow, this was one step too far. She was finally pulled back by her team, but she remained agitated and attempted to break free as they frantically led her toward the tour bus. What the fuck just happened? Nobody knows, least of all her team. There are a lot of rumors surrounding this incident, and I say rumors because none of the claims have been backed up. The prevailing explanation is that Kaufman had been hounding Björk for days on end, and that on Björk's arrival at the airport, seemed to go out of her way to target Björk's son, Sindri, with her questions. To be fair, this all sounds 100% believable, and probably is true. But none of the news cameras caught these supposed questions, and Kaufman's alleged harassment isn't documented. Maybe Björk just snapped. Who can blame her? To her credit, she immediately reached out to Kaufman to apologize, and the two made up. Kaufman did not press charges.
I just have some bruises. I have a tough head, you know. No, nothing's. I'm okay. Yeah, I'm cool.
Would you consider suing her?
No.
You're not going to sue her?
But the damage was done. It was all caught on film. A shove would have been enough to create a news story. But this was something else entirely. Within hours, the incident was shared all over the world.
At Bangkok Airport. She said she'd had a lot of problems, and it's emerged that the journalist may just have been one of those problems.
There was nothing Björk could do but apologize publicly, though she could not help but defend herself, too.
Do you mind if we show that film? It's up to you, completely.
I've got nothing to hide, you see, but I haven't even seen it myself.
Would you like to see it?
Will it get me really upset?
I don't know, and
After
I don't...
being chuffed, blushed, and...
Was that the monster you were talking about?
I think so.
The monster came out really big time then?
Yeah, and I was just watching like the rest of the people.
Oh, you were out of yourself?
Well, it was a bit of out of experience, I have to say so.
Right. But what did she say to you?
But basically, they all started talking to me. There was like 9 TV channels.
Yeah.
With 4 people in each TV channel, so that makes about 40, 36 to be precise.
Too many, all against you.
Too many. They're all there, you're not expecting them.
Yeah.
And they ask you all these questions, and you be all polite, and you go, listen, come tomorrow and I'll do a proper interview with that.
Right.
And they won't listen, and they start talking like live on TV. They go, oh, she's too arrogant, she hasn't got any time for us because she's a pop star from Europe and all that thing. And I was just polite and I went like, and then, guess what they did then?
Don't know, but...
They started talking to my son.
Oh, that's not fair.
And they started, oh, it's really difficult to be son of a pop star,
Yeah.
isn't it? Ooh.
So you beat
You know,
the
it's a
crap
very
out of her.
difficult life.
Do it, girl.
Björk's demeanor is entrancing, and with it, she is able to completely disarm what should otherwise be a tense and somewhat embarrassing line of questioning. It's as if the incident is the last thing on her mind, and probably it was. Björk is not a normal human being. Her music is anything but normal. When asked to categorize her music, to assign it a genre, she said it was simply Björk music, and she could not be any more correct. For her first 2 albums, Björk had worked alongside a number of musicians. Among these, Nelly Hooper, 808 State's Graham Massey, and former Massive Attack member Tricky, all of who helped to define Björk's early sound. But Björk wanted to prove herself, not to anyone in particular, but in a far more personal sense. She wanted, more than ever, to create Björk music. I'm teasing myself about doing an album completely independently, just in a room alone. It's not that I don't love the process of working with exceptional artistic people, but I'd like to try something where I do everything from A to Z. The result of this would eventually be Björk's 1997 masterpiece, Homogenic, an album unlike any other, and one considered amongst the most influential of the 90s. This is the story of that album. Here's one thing you probably already know. Björk is a freak of nature. From the sound of her music, you would imagine her composing in some cavernous cave, surrounded by both stringed instruments and futuristic audio equipment. Probably fairies, too. There's a famous 1994 clip from inside Björk's home where she shows a fascinated reporter the space where she conceives her music. It's hilarious. It's just an 8-track mixer, a drum machine, a couple keyboards, and 2 cheap rinky-dinky speakers. And there's no desk, no chair. It's so Björk. So you'd probably imagine that the seeds of Homogenic were planted in a similar space. Well, not exactly. It's time for our first mystery. One that is driving me crazy. In an interview conducted in December of 1996, around 10 months before Homogenic released, Björk would say, "I've got it written. It's mostly based on string quartets. I wrote all of them on my Asian tour. I had my computer with me, and I'm actually recording it on Wednesday." When I first heard this, I automatically assumed she was referring to Sibelius, a versatile but extremely primitive program, which was designed to do exactly what Björk said here, orchestral compositions. But from everything I can find, Björk did not begin using this program until 1999, where it assisted her on a number of compositions. For her 2001 release, Vespertine, what made Sibelius unique for the time was its ability to play back the notation in real time, which greatly appealed to Björk. And while there were a great number of musical notation programs besides Sibelius, this quote from Stephen Malinowski, who assisted Björk in creating animations for the apps in her Biophilia project, makes me think she would not have been very drawn to them. Björk doesn't read notation very well, and she liked my videos as a score. It's also confirmed that Björk herself did not use a digital audio workspace until 1999 with Pro Tools. So if she had a setup where she was recording into her laptop, what program would she have been recording into? I'm sorry to say, I don't have an answer, but I'm also far from an expert. If anyone knows, please tell me. But the most important part of the conception of Homogenic was that it's mostly based on string quartets.
So this is like a fresh start for me. And that's why I want to call this album Homogenic or Genus or Genius or whatever. I'm still working on that because it's one flavor. It's just me now, you know, here. And it's gonna be, instead of like all these different instruments, it's just gonna be beats, strings, and voice.
But she mentioned another crucial element there, beats. And despite Björk's desire to compose as much of the music as possible, she herself would admit that beats weren't her strong point. So recruited to assist her was music engineer Marcus Drabs. During the post-tour, she began calling Drabs and explaining her ideas for the beats and rhythms.
I made a conscious choice that the beats for this album will be very simple, almost naive, but still very natural, but very explosive. Like they're still in the making, which for me is very much Iceland. And we would collect very slowly over a period of almost a year, a library of noises.
Because I'm not a drum programmer, Björk would say, I'd call him up and go psh, 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 down the phone. And by the time I got home, he had built up a library of more than 100 beats. So there we have it, the groundwork of Homogenic, the basis of its simplistic brilliance. Beats, strings, and of course, Björk's otherworldly voice and writing ability. While she was still touring, she had drafts come to her home in London and basically soup up her home recording station, which at the time still resembled that from the 1994 clip. This would later be transported to Spain, where she would really jump into the production of the album. But it was all the way back in January of 1996 that recording began on a song that would make the LP, that being Bachelorette. However, the only element recorded was the orchestral arrangement. The beat and the lyrics had not yet been created. All of this was due to one simple fact. The composition was originally intended for a film, Bernardo Bertolucci's Stealing Beauty. But Björk, on recognizing that the piece fit perfectly into the album she was conceptualizing, decided to keep it for herself. Björk's passion for strings did not come out of nowhere. She was a child prodigy who had attended classical music school from the ages of 5 to 15.
They sent me to classical music school when I was 5, and I was there for 10 years. It was very conservative, but I was a bit of a rebel. I would do my own little projects in the corner. I would get a lot of freedom. I would talk to a lot of, that's how I got introduced to like Jesse Stockhouse and electronic music. You know, I basically got introduced to all music there is. I mean, in European, at least, let's say 400 or 500 years. And even though I ended up deciding that majority of it was not maybe my cup of tea, at least I knew it existed.
I'm really seeking after something that's Icelandic, she said. And I want it to be more me, this album. Debut and post are a bit like Tintin books. Sort of Tintin goes to Congo, Tintin goes to Tibet. Now I think it's a bit more Björk goes home. Björk relished working at home, the freedom, the flexibility. The production of the album was moving along at breakneck pace, but she was about to hit a sudden and traumatic speed bump. First off, her current relationship with the musician Goldie was on the rocks. Their schedules weren't compatible. And not only that, as a celebrity couple, they were subject to constant media scrutiny, some of which, unfortunately, was due to the fact that they were an interracial couple. While this wasn't usually rooted in hate, the fact of the matter was that Iceland, Björk's home country, was extremely homogenous, especially at the time. So Björk's relationship with a black man was a topic of interest. But this one incident, targeted at Björk as a result of her relationship with Goldie, was absolutely driven by hate. I am talking, of course, about Ricardo Lopez, the man who attempted to mail Björk a bomb. He was incensed by her relationship with Goldie, this almost solely due to the fact that Goldie was black.
News this week.
Björk narrowly escaped a letter bomb attack from an obsessive fan. A bomb containing sulfuric acid was sent to her London home, but it was found by post office workers before it reached her. The bomb was sent from America by Ricardo Lopez, who was found dead by police in Florida after committing suicide on Monday. Lopez had made a series of videotapes up to the day which showed him making the bomb to send to Björk, explaining that he was obsessed with her.
His intentions were all documented in his diary, as well as in a series of disturbing video diaries. His body and his diaries were discovered before the letter bomb reached Björk. It was seized and destroyed.
We were tipped off by the American police via Scotland Yard's anti-terrorist squad that there was a suspect package on its way, so they thought. We tipped off our people at the sorting office at Tooting, and a couple of the night sorters, really very vigilant, picked the item up very quickly.
But still, you can imagine the horror this inflicted on Björk. This was only intensified by the media presence following the incident.
Iceland's pop queen leaving her home in West London late this afternoon, still distressed at the discovery she'd been the target of a crazed fan's attempt to harm her.
It's just kind of a very sad thing, you know, obviously when somebody's face off, you know. It's terrible. I'm not sure if I'll treat Marie properly for a while.
You must be very frightened.
For a brief period, work on the album was halted, but Björk would wind up pouring much of this distress into her music. The result of this was the song So Broken.
So broken.
In order to distance herself from the trauma, she imagined the song as a black joke, picturing herself as the lead in a melodramatic Spanish soap opera, backed in her head by children crying and dish suds splashing. Björk would seek further escape, this time in a physical sense. Alongside Drabs, she packed up her studio and set off to Spain. It was really scary, she would say of her home following the incident. 40 media people were hanging outside my house with a lens on my toilet seat. I didn't feel welcome at all at my own home. Of course, I cried for the man, and I was very upset over his death, but for me it destroyed my home. I had to rediscover everything. Me and my son, Sindri, talked a lot about it. Now home is when we meet, wherever we are. Home is where the heart is. The first act of business on her arrival to Spain was to continue work on her music, adorning So Broken with Ramondo Amador's fluid gypsy guitar. The result was a song that sounded significantly different from anything else she was working on at the time. Yet the style fits the song perfectly. But it's not as if Björk was able to quickly put all her trauma behind her to focus on the music. Drabs would recall, at the beginning, it was hard and grim. I would see her in the morning and she'd say, "Today I'm going to try and focus and put this behind me." But maybe an hour into a day, she'd just break down in tears. It was a big hole for her to climb out of and to process. But ultimately, for Björk, the way forward was music. She would walk through the mountains of El Cortijo, writing music in her head as she did. While she had set out to create an album of Icelandic identity, she found herself inspired by her environment, of the meshing of cultures. An example of this is Hunter, the song that opens Homogenic. When composing the song, Björk heard in her head a rhythm similar to Ravel's Bolero, a driving 1928 classical work, for which the French composer had himself been inspired by the Spanish dance form of the same name. And now, with Björk, this cultural pipeline was continued.
One of the notes that we discussed maybe trying a figure such as a bolero, Ravel's Bolero. In the course of the recording, we decided to exaggerate certain aspects of the string parts by having the strings doing sliding notes and kind of sluggish and slurring.
This was not the only aspect of the album that evolved. Björk was changing, and she decided that she did want to seek out other musicians for the project, other perspectives and approaches. Perhaps the most significant of these additional collaborators would be Mark Bell of LFO. She'd wanted to work with Bell for years. When he eventually came by, they had planned to work together for only 5 days. Bell ended up dropping in and out for months. Bell provided contrast on the album. His sound was playful and upbeat, giving a bright, liquid life, serving as an excellent foil for Björk and Drab's much colder, crunchier beats. Bell's work shines distinctly on Pluto and Alarm Bell, but especially on Immature, which Bell himself solely produced. She also brought in longtime collaborator Deodato to help her translate and refine her stringed compositions. "He's been like a big daddy," Björk said, "letting me experiment with notes, but still being there for me when I need him, and sometimes just completely doing it for me."
When she sends me something, it's pretty much done. What I understand, and that I was correct in understanding it that way, is that she really wants a color. She really wants the humanizing factor into tracks that are basically, sequenced using different sounds or using electronic sounds.
There was one element that Björk decided she wanted to remain firmly Icelandic, at least in one aspect. Brought in to perform the strings was an Icelandic quartet, composed of some of the best musicians from Iceland.
She's talked about that. She wants more of this raw sound, not this beautiful European sound maybe. Well, I picked up her uses of intervals, for instance, fifths, and that's very traditional in Iceland and actually very unique. Icelandic folk songs often use these interval of fifths throughout, the whole song.
As the music and the album itself came into shape, Björk began to relent on her initial goal of using only strings, beats, and voice. They would still remain the primary driver of the album, but she found that some songs benefited from additional elements. This meant adding bass lines, as well as other instruments. The sounds that open the album are not strings, but accordion, played by Japanese musician Koba. Mark Bell sampled and reversed Koba's accordion, producing the wavering sounds. Along with these, there are keys and glass harmonica, all of these sounds distorted and manipulated by Drabs and Bell to create something wholly unique and alien. Then there was Björk's otherworldly voice, which poured out of her, uninhibited. Almost always, lead vocals are recorded in a vocal booth with an elevated mic, a somewhat sterile but precise and effective practice. But Björk insisted on using a hand mic, on performing, both with her voice and her body. Toward the end of the sessions, Björk wrote the song All Is Full of Love, a song that brought the healing process Björk endured throughout the making of the album to an affirming, positive close. It was a spring morning and I walked outside and the birds were singing. Spring is here, Björk said. I wrote the song in one day. You know, I just clicked. You're being too stubborn. Don't be so silly. There is love everywhere. Björk's original version of the song would wind up released as a single, but for Homogenic, Björk wanted the track to perfectly capture the springtime bliss that had inspired it in the first place. She had producer Howie B rework the song, resulting in the dreamy, soothing track that appears on the album. El Cortijo had become home for Björk, but the album was nearing completion, and much of the work required to finish the LP required traveling back up to London. Perhaps the most significant of this work was her collaboration with Sigsworth, who helped her to reimagine the song Unravel. He would recall of the original version. I was listening to drum and bass, which sounds too fast, and I wanted Unravel to sound too slow. It's not just a slow tempo, it's a tempo which feels like it's slower than it should be. Björk loved the new interpretation. Her lead vocal would only require one take, sang, of course, into a handheld mic. While the overall sound of Homogenic ended up less homogeneous than Björk envisioned, she still wanted the final track listing to reflect her initial goal, for every track to occupy the same auditory world, and to sequence the songs in just the right order. The result of this was several incredible tracks, including So Broken being cut from the album, as the song's sonic landscape just didn't sit nicely enough with the rest of the album. Scary was another song that nearly made the album, but it also ended up cut. All in all, there were 18 songs considered for the album, eventually cut down to a concise 10. Björk had originally considered mixing the album extremely unusually. The beats would be mixed entirely on the right channel, the strings on the left, and her voice in the middle, so that the listener could choose, with the audio balance on their stereo, between chamber pop and club pop versions of the album.
My heart comes undone, slowly unravels.
But in the end, it was decided that this style simply did not sound as good as a more typical approach. The idea was dropped. Despite the goals and the concept of the album shifting along the way, the end result was exactly what Björk wanted. It was Björk music.
Debut and post were maybe a little bit stories about other people more, and this maybe more stories about myself and the mess I got myself in, and how to get out of messes. I wanted challenge, and I wanted action, and I wanted emergency situation, to a massive challenge to get out all my special stunts, and I did. I got what I wanted, you know?
It was stunning, resonant, yet still alien. A convergence of Icelandic Björk and global Björk, of trauma and healing, nature and technology, of beats and strings. And just like the music itself, Björk had changed immensely. But one thing did not: the magic, the timelessness of the art she created. There was, and still is, no one else like her. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, pretty please give it a like. And if you would like to see more videos like this, consider subscribing. My other channel is Making of the Beatles, where I do exactly what I do here, except only with the Beatles, and frankly, in a lot more detail. If you would like to watch videos early and help to support the channel, I have a Patreon, where you can join for as little as $1 a month. Once again, thank you so much for watching. Until next time.
The record is called Homogenic. Why's that?
Oh, it's like more one flavor than the ones before.
Lots of flavours, is that what I mean?
No, just one flavor.
Right, I see. Single, solo, sorry, okay, man. Well, in that case, I'd like to invite you to settle in over there.
Okay.
I shall keep the audience busy over this way while you settle in. So Björk's going over there, and when she's ready, and she's settled in, primer's put to one side, entirely Icelandic string section, readied, tuned up. Please welcome Björk, ladies and gentlemen.